I walked into our apartment after a long day at work, expecting Jordan to greet me with his usual warm smile and maybe dinner cooking on the stove. Instead, I found him sitting on our couch in complete silence, staring at the wall like he'd seen a ghost. The atmosphere felt heavy and cold, nothing like the home we'd built together over the past 3 years. "Jordan? What's wrong?" I asked, dropping my purse by the door. He didn't look at me. Instead, he reached for something on the coffee table and threw it toward me. It was my grandmother's necklace, the one he'd given me for our 2-year anniversary. The delicate chain made a soft clinking sound as it hit the hardwood floor. "I know everything," he said, his voice filled with disgust and pain. My heart started racing. "Everything about what?" I asked, genuinely confused. Jordan pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots that made my blood run cold. They looked like text messages from me to another man, saying things I would never say, planning meetings I never planned. "I trusted you," he whispered. "Pack your things and get out." I stared at the screenshots on Jordan's phone, my hands shaking. The messages showed my name, my phone number, but these weren't my words. "Jordan, I didn't send these. I swear on my life, I didn't send these messages." My voice was getting higher, more desperate. He pulled his phone away from me like I was going to delete the evidence. "Don't lie to me anymore," he said coldly. "I have proof right here. You've been cheating on me for months." I reached for his arm, but he pulled away from my touch like I was poison. "Please, just listen to me. Someone is framing me. This isn't real." Jordan stood up and started pacing around our living room, running his hands through his hair the way he did when he was trying to stay calm. "I got this from someone who cares about me," he said. "Someone who didn't want to see me get hurt, but couldn't stand watching you destroy me anymore." My stomach dropped. "Who told you this? Who gave you these screenshots?" Jordan stopped pacing and looked at me with eyes full of hurt and betrayal. "Your sister warned me about you," he said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow to my chest. I couldn't breathe properly. "Liana?" My own sister had given Jordan fake evidence that I was cheating? "That's impossible," I whispered. "Liana would never do that to me. We're sisters." But even as I said it, doubt was creeping into my mind. Jordan grabbed his jacket from the chair. "I'm staying at my brother's tonight. I want you gone when I get back tomorrow." The door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in the apartment that had been our sanctuary. With trembling fingers, I called Liana's number. She answered on the second ring. "Oh my God, what's wrong?" "You sound terrible," she said, but something in her voice sounded off. Fake concern mixed with something else I couldn't identify. "Liana, did you tell Jordan that I was cheating on him?" There was a pause that lasted too long. "What? No, of course not. Why would you even ask me that?" But her voice had changed. It was higher, more defensive. "You did this to yourself," she continued. "If Jordan found out you were cheating, then maybe you should look at your own actions instead of blaming other people." My head was spinning. This wasn't the sister I knew. This was someone else entirely. I drove to my parents' house through tears, barely able to see the road. Mom and Dad would help me figure this out. They would listen to my side and help me understand what was happening. I found them in the kitchen having their evening coffee. "Mom, Dad, I need help," I said, collapsing into a chair at their dining table. "Jordan thinks I'm cheating on him, but someone gave him fake evidence. I think it was Liana." Mom sighed deeply, like I was bringing unnecessary drama into her peaceful evening. "You always ruin things," she said without even looking up from her coffee cup. "Every good thing that happens to you, you find a way to mess it up." Dad nodded in agreement. "Liana's the stable one. She's always been more mature than you. If Jordan found evidence, maybe there's some truth to it." I felt like I was drowning. My own parents were taking someone else's word over mine without even hearing the full story. But Mom, I didn't. The front door opened, and Liana walked in with Jordan right behind her. She went straight to him and gave him a long, comforting hug while staring at me over his shoulder. The look in her eyes was pure triumph. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Jordan and Liana's hug, about the way she had looked at me. Something about it felt familiar, but I couldn't place where I'd seen that look before. I went to my childhood bedroom and started digging through old boxes, looking for anything that might help me understand what was happening. In a dusty shoebox under my bed, I found my old journals from college. I flipped through the pages, reading about classes, friends, and boys I dated. Then I found an entry from junior year that made my heart stop. Liana has been asking so many questions about Jordan lately. She wants to know what classes he's taking, where he likes to hang out, what kind of girls he dates. I told her he's just a friend from my psychology class, but she keeps bringing him up. It's kind of weird how interested she is in him. I kept reading and found another entry from a few weeks later. Liana came to visit me at college and kept asking if she could meet Jordan. I introduced them at a coffee shop, and she barely talked to me the whole time. She just stared at him and laughed at everything he said, even when it wasn't funny. The next morning, I looked at the screenshots Jordan had shown me more carefully. I took pictures of them with my phone and zoomed in on every detail. The more I studied them, the more suspicious they became. One message was supposedly sent at 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, but I remembered that Tuesday clearly because Jordan and I had fallen asleep watching movies together. He would have noticed if I was texting someone at 2:30 in the morning. Another message was dated from last weekend when Jordan and I were camping together with no cell service. I would have had no way to send messages during that time. But the biggest clue was in the formatting. The messages looked slightly different from how my real texts appeared. The font was a little off, and the color of the text bubbles wasn't quite right. Someone had created fake messages and taken screenshots of them, but they hadn't been careful enough to make them look completely real. I felt a mixture of relief and anger. Relief that I wasn't going crazy, and anger that someone had gone to such lengths to destroy my relationship. Someone who knew exactly when Jordan and I were together and when we weren't. Someone who had access to my phone and knew my texting patterns well enough to fake them. I called my best friend Ava, the only person I could trust to tell me the truth. Something's not right about this whole situation, I told her. I think someone is trying to frame me. Ava was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something that's been bothering me? She said finally. Liana's been asking a lot of questions about your passwords lately. Like, your phone password, your social media passwords, even your email password. She said it was because she wanted to help you organize your digital life or something, but it seemed really weird to me. My blood ran cold. When was this? I asked. About 2 months ago. She was asking me if I knew any of them because you guys share everything as sisters. I told her I didn't know and that she should ask you directly, but she said she wanted it to be a surprise. 2 months ago. Right around the time the fake messages started, according to the timestamps. Ava, I need to check something. Can you come over? When Ava arrived at my apartment, I opened my laptop and checked the login history. There it was, a login from 6 weeks ago at 3:15 a.m. from an IP address I didn't recognize. Someone had been in my accounts, and I had a pretty good idea who it was. 2 days later, Ava called me with news that felt like another punch to the stomach. I heard from Carol that Liana is engaged, she said carefully. To Jordan's childhood best friend, Theo. I almost dropped the phone. Liana was engaged? When had this happened? And to Theo, of all people? I'd met Theo a few times at Jordan's family gatherings. He was quiet, kind, and had always seemed like a genuinely good person. When did this happen? I asked. From what I heard, he proposed last week. They're having an engagement party in 2 weeks at the country club downtown. The timeline was making me sick. Jordan broke up with me on Monday. Liana got engaged the following week. She had destroyed my relationship and immediately moved on to planning her own future with someone from Jordan's inner circle. This wasn't a coincidence. This was calculated. She had planned this whole thing, not just to hurt me, but to insert herself permanently into Jordan's world through his best friend. I realized that Liana hadn't just wanted to ruin my relationship. She had wanted to steal my entire life and make it her own. The engagement party was in 2 weeks. That gave me time to figure out how to expose what she had done. I had never been close to Theo, but I knew he was a good person who deserved to know the truth about who he was marrying. I found his address through mutual friends and drove to his apartment complex, my heart pounding the whole way. When he answered the door, he looked surprised but not unwelcoming. "Hey, I didn't expect to see you. I heard about you and Jordan. I'm really sorry." His kindness made this even harder. "Theo, I need to tell you something important about Liana. Can I come in?" He hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside to let me in. His apartment was neat and simple, with books stacked everywhere and photos of family on the walls. "Look, I know this is going to sound crazy," I began, "but I think Liana framed me to break up my relationship with Jordan." Theo sat down heavily on his couch. "I don't know what to say. That's a pretty serious accusation." I could see doubt in his eyes, but not the kind of doubt that meant he didn't believe me. It was the kind of doubt that meant he was already questioning things himself. "Theo, have you noticed anything strange about Liana's behavior lately?" He was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he looked up at me and said, "I already have doubts about some things. Maybe you should tell me what you know." Theo and I talked for 2 hours. The more we compared notes, the clearer the picture became. "She's been disappearing at night," Theo told me. "When I ask where she's going, she says she's with you, helping you through your breakup with Jordan. But something about it never felt right." I shook my head. "I haven't seen Liana since the night she hugged Jordan at my parents' house. She's definitely not helping me through anything." Theo ran his hands over his face. "She's been obsessed with Jordan since we got engaged. She talks about him constantly, asks questions about his childhood, his favorite things, his ex-girlfriends. I thought it was just because he's going to be part of our friend group, but now." He trailed off. "There's more," I said, and told him about the fake messages, the suspicious logins on my accounts, and Liana's questions about my passwords. Theo listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail I shared. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "We need to work together on this," he said finally. "She's playing both of us, and probably Jordan too. But if we can prove what she's done, we can stop her before she ruins anyone else." I felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. I wasn't alone in this anymore. Back at my apartment, I went through my laptop with new determination. In my documents folder, I found something I hadn't noticed before. A folder labeled backup that I definitely hadn't created. Inside were dozens of files with suspicious names like fake_messages_draft, photo_edit_practice, and one that made my blood boil, plan_catch_her_cheating. I opened the files with shaking hands. There were multiple versions of fake text conversations, practice runs of photoshopped images, and detailed notes about my schedule and Jordan's schedule. Liana had been planning this for months. She had documented when we went to bed, when we woke up, when we were apart, and when we were together. She had used this information to create fake messages that would be sent at times when Jordan couldn't verify where I was. But the most damning evidence was a voice recording labeled insurance_policy. I clicked play and heard Liana's voice talking to someone on the phone. She thinks she's so perfect with her perfect boyfriend and her perfect life. But Jordan should have always been mine. Once I ruin her reputation, he'll see what kind of person she really is. And if he doesn't come back to me, at least she'll be alone like she deserves. The recording was dated from 3 months ago. She had been planning my destruction for 3 months. I knew I had to show Jordan the evidence, but I was terrified he wouldn't believe me. Too much time had passed, and too much damage had been done. I drove to his brother's house where he was staying and knocked on the door with my laptop bag in hand. Jordan answered the door looking exhausted and sad. "What do you want?" he asked, but his voice was tired rather than angry. "I have something to show you," I said. "Evidence that I was framed. If you don't want to see it, I'll leave and never bother you again. But I'm asking you to give me 5 minutes to show you the truth." Jordan stared at me for a long moment. "I don't want to go through this again," he said. "I can't keep having my heart broken." I pulled out my laptop. "Jordan, if I really cheated on you, why would I be here with evidence? If I was guilty, wouldn't I just disappear and let you move on?" Something in his expression shifted. He stepped aside and let me in. I opened my laptop and showed him everything: the suspicious login times, the poorly edited screenshots, the voice recording of Liana admitting she wanted to ruin me. As Jordan listened to his future sister-in-law's voice describing her plan to destroy me, his face went pale. When the recording ended, he looked shaken and sick to his stomach. Jordan sat in silence for several minutes after hearing all the evidence. Finally, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I should have trusted you. I should have known you would never do something like this." He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, even though I understood why he had believed the fake evidence. "Jordan, I need to ask you something," I said. "Did you ever really trust me? Or were you always looking for reasons to doubt me?" He started crying then, really crying. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've always been insecure about losing you. You're so smart and beautiful and kind. I always felt like I wasn't good enough for you." When Liana showed me those messages, part of me believed them because I was already afraid you would leave me for someone better. His honesty was painful but important. "Jordan, a relationship can't work without trust," I said. "Even if we can prove my innocence, can you honestly say you'll never doubt me again?" He begged for another chance, promised he would change, swore he would never doubt me again. But I could see the insecurity still there in his eyes. Liana hadn't just destroyed our relationship with her lies. She had revealed cracks in our foundation that were already there. I needed time to figure out if those cracks could be repaired or if they would always be there, waiting for the next person to exploit them. I met with Theo again the next day to plan our next move. We both agreed that Liana needed to face consequences for what she had done, but we wanted to be smart about it. "The engagement party is this weekend," Theo said. "All of our friends and family will be there, including Jordan. It's the perfect opportunity to expose her, but we need to do it right." We spent hours planning how to reveal the truth without causing a scene that would make us look like the villains. "We'll let her give her speech first," I suggested. "Let her stand up there and talk about love and honesty and truth. Then we'll calmly present the evidence." Theo nodded. "I've been documenting her lies about where she goes at night. I have timestamps that prove she wasn't with you when she said she was." We decided to create a presentation that would show side-by-side comparisons of the real messages versus the fake ones, along with the computer login records and Liana's own voice admitting to her plan. "This isn't about revenge," I told Theo. "This is about making sure she can't do this to anyone else." But if I was being honest, there was a part of me that wanted everyone to see who Liana really was. I was tired of being the scapegoat while she played the role of the perfect sister. Theo had been doing his own detective work, and what he found made our case even stronger. "I went through her phone while she was sleeping," he told me. "I found text messages to her friend describing her whole plan." He showed me screenshots of conversations where Liana bragged about how easy it had been to fool Jordan. "Once I ruin her reputation, Jordan will come back to me," one message read. "He was always supposed to be mine. She just got to him first." Another message was even more damaging: "I've been working on this for months." Fake messages, fake emails, even fake social media accounts. "She'll never be able to prove her innocence because everyone will think she's just a cheater trying to cover her tracks." Reading these messages made me feel sick and angry at the same time. Liana had put so much time and energy into destroying my life. She had studied my relationship, learned our patterns, and crafted the perfect lie to tear us apart. There are dozens of these messages, Theo said. She documented everything like it was some kind of game. He took screenshots of all the evidence and backed it up in multiple places. We weren't going to let her delete the evidence or claim her phone had been hacked. This time, we had proof that couldn't be disputed or explained away. I decided to do something that felt risky but necessary. I called Liana and pretended to forgive her, asking for her help picking out a dress for a job interview. I wanted to see if she would reveal anything else about her plan, and I wanted her to think I had moved on from the whole situation. We met at the mall, and Liana was in an unusually good mood. She kept talking about her engagement party and how perfect everything was going to be. "I'm so happy you're moving on," she said as we looked through dresses. "Jordan was never right for you anyway. You're better off without him." I bit my tongue and played along. "You're probably right," I said. Maybe this whole thing was a blessing in disguise. Liana's eyes lit up with satisfaction. "Exactly. Sometimes we need to go through hard times to realize what we really deserve." As we continued shopping, she became more and more confident, thinking she had gotten away with everything. "You know," she said casually, "Jordan should have always been mine. I knew him first, before you ever met him in that psychology class. I just never made my move fast enough." There it was, the admission I needed. She was confirming that this had always been about Jordan, not about hurting me. I was just collateral damage in her plan to get the man she wanted. Later that week, Theo showed me the guest list for the engagement party. I wasn't surprised to see that Jordan was invited, but I was hurt to discover that Ava wasn't on the list. Liana was controlling every aspect of the event, deciding who deserved to be there and who didn't. "She asked me to uninvite you too," Theo admitted. "She said it would be too awkward having you there so soon after your breakup with Jordan. But I told her you were my friend too, and I wanted you there." I was grateful that Theo was standing up for me, but I also realized this was part of Liana's plan. She wanted to isolate me from everyone we knew, making it harder for me to defend myself or share my side of the story. "She's been telling people that you're unstable," Theo continued. "She says you've been calling her constantly, blaming her for your problems, and making up conspiracy theories about being framed." My stomach dropped. Liana was already working to discredit me before I could expose her. If I tried to tell people the truth, they would think I was just a bitter ex-girlfriend trying to cause drama. But that was exactly why we needed to let the evidence speak for itself. Facts and recordings don't lie, even when people want to dismiss them. The engagement party was 2 days away, and I was ready to make sure everyone heard the truth. The engagement party was held at an elegant country club with twinkling lights and beautiful flowers everywhere. Liana looked stunning in a flowing blue dress, and she was practically glowing with happiness as she greeted guests. I arrived with Theo, who had insisted on picking me up so we could present a united front. Jordan was already there, looking handsome but uncomfortable in his suit. Our eyes met across the room, and he gave me a small, sad smile. I nodded back but kept my distance. After cocktails and appetizers, Liana stood up to give a toast. The room fell silent as she clinked her champagne glass with a knife. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate Theo and me," she began, her voice sweet and sincere. "They say that love is about honesty, trust, and always telling the truth to the people you care about." She looked directly at me as she said this, and I saw a flash of triumph in her eyes. "I want to thank everyone who has supported us, especially those who have always told the truth, even when it was difficult." The crowd murmured approvingly, and several people glanced at me with what looked like pity. But then Theo stood up, his champagne glass in hand. "About that," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the room. "I think we should talk about the truth." Theo had set up a projector screen at the front of the room, hidden behind the flower arrangements. As he began to speak, the screen lowered and came to life. Liana just talked about the importance of truth, Theo said, his voice steady and calm. So I want to share some truths with all of you tonight. The first slide showed side-by-side comparisons of real text messages versus the fake ones Liana had created to frame me. The differences were clear when you could see them together. The fonts, the colors, the timestamp inconsistencies. These fake messages were created to destroy an innocent person's relationship, Theo continued. The next slide showed the computer login records from my laptop, proving that someone had accessed my accounts without permission. Then came the voice recording. Liana's own voice filled the room, describing her plan to ruin my reputation and steal Jordan away from me. She thinks she's so perfect with her perfect boyfriend and her perfect life. But Jordan should have always been mine. The crowd gasped audibly. People started whispering to each other and looking back and forth between Liana and me. I could see shock, disgust, and disbelief on the faces of people who had known Liana her whole life. The perfect sister, the stable one, the one who always told the truth, was revealed as a manipulative liar who had destroyed her own sister's life out of jealousy. Liana's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, panic, anger, and then desperation. As the presentation ended and the room buzzed with whispered conversations, she stood up shakily. "This is all fake," she said, her voice high and trembling. "She's framing me to get back at me for telling Jordan the truth about her cheating." But her protests sounded weak compared to the evidence everyone had just seen and heard. "Those computer records could be fabricated," she continued, looking around the room desperately for support. "The voice recording could be edited. She's trying to ruin my engagement because she's jealous that I'm happy." Theo pulled out his phone and showed the text messages where Liana had bragged about her plan to her friend. "These are screenshots from your phone, Liana. I took them while you were sleeping." The timestamps on the messages corresponded perfectly with the fake evidence she had created. The room was completely silent now except for Liana's increasingly frantic attempts to explain away the evidence. But with each word she spoke, she sounded more guilty and more desperate. Finally, Theo looked at her with sadness rather than anger. "I can't marry someone who would do this to their own sister," he said quietly. "We're done." He set his champagne glass on the table and walked out of the party, leaving Liana standing alone at the front of the room with tears streaming down her face. After most of the guests had left and the country club staff was cleaning up the abandoned engagement party, Jordan approached me in the parking lot. I was standing by my car, emotionally drained but relieved that the truth was finally out. "You were right about everything," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I should have trusted you from the beginning. I should have known you would never betray me like that." He stepped closer to me, and I could see hope in his eyes. "I was wrong about so many things. You're the one I want to be with. You're the one I love. Can we try again?" I looked at Jordan, this man I had planned to marry, this man I had loved deeply for 3 years. Part of me wanted to say yes, to go back to the way things were before Liana destroyed everything. But I remembered the doubt in his eyes when he threw my necklace at me, the way he had refused to listen to my explanations, the way he had chosen to believe the worst about me instead of fighting for our relationship. "No, Jordan," I said softly. "I'm not the one anymore." His face crumpled with disappointment and regret. "But I love you. I made a mistake, but people make mistakes. Can't we work through this?" I shook my head. "You didn't just make a mistake. You showed me that when things get hard, you don't trust me enough to fight for us. I can't build a marriage on that foundation." 2 days after the engagement party, my parents finally called. I almost didn't answer because I wasn't ready for another conversation about how I had ruined things, but curiosity got the better of me. "We didn't know," Mom said immediately when I picked up the phone. "We had no idea Liana had done all those things. We're so sorry we didn't believe you." Her voice sounded genuinely remorseful, but the damage was already done. "We should have listened to your side of the story," Dad added. "We should have supported you instead of automatically taking Liana's word over yours." I appreciated their apology, but I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. "You've always chosen your favorite," I said calmly. "Every time there was a conflict between Liana and me, you sided with her without even hearing what I had to say." This wasn't the first time. It was just the most obvious time. There was silence on the other end of the line. "We love you both equally," Mom said weakly. "No, you don't," I replied. "And that's okay. I've accepted it. But I'm not going to keep pretending that we have a healthy family when we don't." I hung up the phone and felt a sense of peace settle over me. For the first time in my life, I had stopped trying to earn their approval and started focusing on my own happiness. 3 weeks after the engagement party, I received a text message from Theo that made me smile for the first time in months. "You didn't just save me from making the biggest mistake of my life," he wrote. "You saved yourself too. I hope you know how strong and brave you are." His message came at the perfect time because that morning I had received an email that was about to change everything. It was a job offer from a marketing company in Seattle. A position I had applied for months ago and forgotten about in all the chaos with Liana and Jordan. The salary was excellent, the work sounded challenging and interesting, and best of all, it was 2,000 miles away from all the drama and pain of my current life. I had 2 weeks to decide whether to accept the offer. As I sat in my apartment looking around at all the memories of the life I had built here, I realized there was nothing keeping me in this city anymore. My relationship was over, my family had chosen sides against me, and I needed a fresh start where I could be known for who I really was instead of being defined by other people's lies about me. I called the company that afternoon and accepted the job. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt excited about my future instead of trapped by my past. Moving to Seattle turned out to be the best decision I had ever made. My new job was everything I had hoped for. Challenging, rewarding, and filled with colleagues who appreciated my skills and treated me with respect. I found a beautiful apartment near the water with huge windows that filled my home with natural light. I joined a hiking group and made new friends who knew nothing about my past drama and liked me for who I was in the present. For the first time in years, I wasn't Liana's sister or Jordan's ex-fiancé. I was just me, independent, successful, and genuinely happy. My name is Giselle, I'm 26 years old and this is my story. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.